What's good, YouTube? DM Gaming here, guys. Y'all, I was just doing a video, and a gnat was on my computer desk, and I hit it, and it like crashed my computer. Bro, I was bringing so much heat. Needless to say, man, I had to start the video. So here we are, guys. This article right here, it to me has been the most in-depth of most of the articles that I've seen. So we're going to get into it, okay? Got to start from scratch, my guy. EA Sports College Football 25, a look at gameplay, NIL, Road to Glory, Dynasty with someone who's played it. Article by Cameron. Skipping down to the questions because all that's just an introduction kind of deal. Wait, what did he say about Colorado? Earlier this month, EA Sports. Oh, okay, yeah. Anyway, so they asked him. He asked, what were your initial thoughts after playing the game? All right. As someone who has played the last iteration and kept playing it for a while, the gameplay is just so much smoother. It feels like it was gone for about a decade and it's now back. Yet it does feel different than how Madden plays. And that's not anything different, man. Like, anybody who's played college football knows it's never played like Madden. College football is a faster game because there's and not faster. Some people hear faster and they're like, oh, there's not faster. NFL players are faster. No, by faster means there's more big plays that are going to happen because there is a larger skill gap between college players. There's a larger skill gap in college. The skill gap in NFL is minuscule. You know what I'm saying? So you're not going to see it. Look, what is this? Get off of there. You're not going to see as many big plays in NFL. Okay? So that's that. He says it's a little bit faster. In the old game, you could wait until the last possible second to pass and the guy would usually get it off. That is noticeably different. They also put a ton of time and energy into really making each playbook distinct. And guys, we've been doing playbooks every day. Eventually, I'm going to get into doing actual team playbook breakdowns, okay? But I've followed the channel, man, because I've been doing playbooks. We did one today, actually. Defensively, kind of broke the mold on the defensive playbook. Let me mute that there. Did the 4-2-5 defensive breakdown. Now, we've talked about when this information came out, I had an IGN article I read on here. But this one is better from what I've read so far. And I stopped reading when the video cut off. But, guys, let's go on. The number one thing that you get from this is that these guys who make the game is not just another sports game they work on. They're absolute college football nerds. They geek on every little detail, like how Tennessee does the checkerboard or how different teams will do the stripes. That level of detail. They have unique sounds for every single team. The mantra that they try to express is that every team is somebody's favorite team. So we want all the Division I teams that people are playing to be represented and feel special when they're playing. And I believe that. College football team, they should let them make Madden, bro, because they are awesome. He said, was there anything else that stood out? He said, I thought the ability to do pass rush moves with the right trigger was pretty useful. There is also a real difference and a reason why you might want to play at every level of the defense. And I always liked that about college games. Because I remember me and my brother used to always play on the safeties because you could come down and play the run. If it was run, you could play the pass if it's pass. I would even play on the linebacker some. But I noticed in Madden, I play a lot on the D-line. You know what I'm saying? But I thought that's cool. The first game I played, I had like a 7-yard punt shank. The kicking, he said the kicking controls are new, and it makes sense. He said the other thing they really talked about is that everybody in the NFL is a professional football player. In college, that's not the case. The gap between the best I'm glad somebody else is freaking saying it. The gap between the best NFL players and the worst is so much more narrow. The ratings in terms of spread aren't 90-60. It's probably like 99-30 in some cases. And by spread, he's talking about teams. Like Alabama, those players are a higher rate. Because one thing I saw people complaining about is, oh, Madden said the same thing, that there's going to be a greater disparity between really good players and the average players. And guys, in all actuality, it is. But you still have to understand in the NFL, the skill gap is still small. So, you know, you're not gonna, like, those guys are gonna be good, but it's not gonna be like game-changing, game-breaking different. In college, that's different. If I got a 5-star running back that runs a 4.3 40, like, and he's good, if his overall is in the 90s, And compared to another team's running back that's 60 overall, you know what I'm saying? There's going to be drastic differences in those players. And if you've played college, they've always done a good job of doing that. You go into college, go to NCAA and put your player stats on 99 or everything 99. They are going to dominate. Love it. The age, experience, and talent levels mean that certain players will be disproportionately affected more by some of the crazy atmospheres. College teams have so much more of a home field advantage than pros do. Some of the stadiums are louder, but the real thing is some of these kids are 18. And guys, that's true. Kennesaw State got a small stadium. Can you imagine them going to play in Tuscaloosa? Come on, man. They are not used to being under real pressure and in loud environments like that. And I remember when my cousin played at SMU, which SMU doesn't have a small stadium, but he talked about the shock of like when they played at Texas A&M, how big the stadium was, the crowd and all of that. And he said that's the hardest thing because he talked about like the student section be yelling all kind of stuff at you during the game and it's hard to hear and like it's cool. That's how it is. They're not used to being under real pressure and in loud environments like that. Let's say you go into Death Valley at night with some hotshot 18-year-old quarterback. You better preview your routes because some of them may not show up. That's a cool feature. Some of those lines may be shaky and squiggly. So if his composure is really bad, some of your routes not showing up at all, that's crazy. That's what he said. You better preview your routes. You better know what play you're running. That's cool. They really did try and simulate giving a real home field advantage to a team. Experience and maturity matters quite a bit. So you go ahead and recruit that 5-star guy. The reason I like this, experience and maturity matters quite a bit. The reason I like this is because now you're going to see if I recruit this guy and he starts for my team, okay, as a freshman, let's say I'm recruiting him out of high school, okay, and he starts as a true freshman. Like, guys, you don't understand how rare that is in college football. Yeah, every team basically kind of has a true freshman playing for them, but you're not going to see a recruiting class of 28 players and 21 of them are starters. You know what I'm saying? And I like that the game is going this route because you're going to have to build them up. And people are going to be like, well, I don't want him riding the bench. Guys, with the wear and tear system, you're going to play those guys. Maybe not a backup quarterback so much, but your backup running backs, your third string running backs, you're going to have to play them. Because the wear and tear system is very similar to how it is in UFC. Eric Rayweather talked about it a little bit in detail, how he was saying that it doesn't show, like normally you remember he used to show the player icon and it just shows if they're fatigued or not. He said the wear and tear system is not fatigue. The wear and tear system is literally that, wear and tear. In a football game, everybody that's played football understands you get beat up. Your body hurts by the end of the game and stuff like that from getting hit and all that stuff and tackling. And he said the wear and tear system operates off of that. It's a separate thing from fatigue. Okay, so he said if your quarterback's taking a bunch of hits, it's going to show his body composition and it's going to show like if he's been getting hit in the legs a lot, his legs are going to be worn down. And so he's more likely to fumble or he's not going to be as fast or he's going to make inaccurate passes. Okay, the wear and tear system is going to affect your players. And that's something better than what I thought the wear and tear system was going to be. I thought it was just more kind of like Madden. Hey, you've been practicing all season long with the first team in full pass. Those guys are worn down, so they fatigue quicker. No, this is something completely different, guys, and completely new. The wear and tear system is literally that. If you're back, if you want to run every single play with your running back and he's getting hit every play, he'd be lucky to make it through the end of the game. Nevertheless, the end of the season. Okay, wear and tear is going to carry over from game to game. It's not going to just reset every game. So bye weeks are going to be important. Playing multiple guys is going to be important. So long gone are the days where you don't need to play your third string running back. You don't need to really play your second string wide receivers unless a guy gets tired and they come in for all of 2 plays before the starter's back in. Okay. Now you're going to have real roster management, but that's perfectly fine because it pairs very well with the transfer portal and recruiting. Because guys, if you're bringing all of these players in, they're not going to just sit on your roster. If they're not playing, they're going to go somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? I love it. Chef's kiss. Anybody talking about this game, bro? Some of y'all mad because Road to Glory don't have high school. I don't like that. I'm a little upset about it, but I'm over it. It's not a deal breaker. NCAA football games haven't always had a road to glory where you start out as high school. Should they left it in the game? I would have loved for them to. I was really looking forward to playing through high school, working my way up to college. I don't like that they went the story route with Road to Glory, because Road to Glory, they said, is like a 10 to 20 hour story mode. Now, it's not like a 2K story mode, they said, but it is a story mode of sorts. So, but get this, listen to this, okay? Don't think that the entire game mode is 10 to 20 hours long. No, the story aspect of Road to Glory is 10 to 20 hours long. After that, you playing games for the next 4 years of college. It's not one of those 10 to I don't think it's like a long shot. You know what I'm saying? Where it's a story mode and afterwards you're done. No, because it even tells you when they talk about Road to Glory that if you don't like the setting, you can transfer to a different school. So think of it more like Madden's story mode, single player mode, where the front end is mostly story driven and the story sets you up for the rest of your career, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And we know this to be true because even in Road to Glory, guess what you got? You got NIL deals, you got recruiting, you got all of that stuff that's going to play a factor. So when you see that Road to Glory is a 10 to 20 hour story mode, don't think that at the end of those 20 hours you're done playing the game. No, the story that gives the background of your character in college is 10 to 20 hours long, but you're still going to be able to play for all 4 years, if that makes sense. You're still probably more likely going to get to play every single game. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's going to skip around like a long shot did. That's not what I've been hearing about Road to Glory. So don't be upset when you hear that. Yes, high school's not in the game. That's a bummer. I don't like that myself. It is what it is. I guess I'm okay with it because I haven't always had that in the first place. Not to mention we ain't had a college football game in 11 years. All right? Would have been cool for them to left it in as part of the story? Yeah, but let's be real. If they did, it'd probably been like a long shot where you ain't playing every single high school game. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it, as you should too. And not to mention, guys, let's be honest. The majority, 95% of people who are buying college football are buying it for Dynasty mode, not Road to Glory. Is Road to Glory good? Yes, we like it. I love the high school aspect. I'll say that again because some people don't tend to listen when you talking real. All right. But the truth of it is that y'all ain't spending every waking moment of playing this game in Road to Glory. You're not. Okay. So when you see 10 to 20 hour story mode, that story is setting up your career. Okay. After that, that 10 to 20 hour thing may take you through your first season. But after that, you're playing a regular Road to Glory mode. Okay. Just like you do in Madden, you still play out your season. It doesn't interrupt your games, if that makes sense. And so with that being said, it's not like, oh, everybody's going to get injured in week 8. It's not telling a story like that. Okay. That 10 to 20 hour story is more or less setting up your career going forward, your Road to Glory. Does that make sense? Because you're going to have to go to class. You're going to have to manage weekly stuff. All of that stuff is going to play a factor, guys. So I'm sorry to kind of stray off, but I had to get that out there. All right. The next one, did you have a chance to play Dynasty or Road to Glory modes? He said we didn't get to play those, but was probably 30 or 40 minutes of the presentation. Okay. Dynasty and Road to Glory are really big selling points compared to Madden. Ultimate Team is rather emphasized, or at least it is in comparison. Dynasty looks really awesome. Okay. There's a whole lot of strategy in terms of recruiting. Each recruit has certain things. Where we at? Certain things that matter to them. Is that what he said? Yeah. Each recruit has certain things that matter to them. There's an emphasis on balancing your roster spots and your NIL resources in recruiting. How many are you going to go with in high school? How many are you going to take out of the transfer portal? That matters a lot, okay? The promises you make to kids in your high school, if you don't live up to them, then your roster makeup probably won't be all that happy. They really try and make it realistic as possible, which is a big step. Guys, that's nothing new. NCAA 14, you can make promises, and if you didn't keep them, those guys would eventually transfer out. They would leave or they would be upset. With the transfer portal, it's going to be bigger, of course, because now players can transfer for whatever reason. All right. Before, they had to have a certain reason, had to be approved by the NCAA and all that stuff. Okay. Or you get a graduate transfer. Now players can transfer if they're not happy. Okay. So it's going to carry more weight if you're not keeping your promises, as opposed to NCAA 14. If I didn't keep a promise, then a recruit would just be upset. His stats would drop. I think his stats did drop like He did, you know what I'm saying? You would take a punishment for not keeping your promises. The game kept a track of that as well. So and it would, because you had a meter, and the more promises that you kept, then it would open up tiers for you to promise bigger things, if that makes sense. So that was real cool, but you know, it'll be different in this game. He says here, did they mention NIL? How NIL will be managed in the game? How will a team like Alabama, which has a lot of NIL, a lot of money in NIL compared to small groups of 5 schools, which may not have a lot of NIL money? This is interesting. He said, they're not actually using money with NIL. Duh, figured that, nothing new. It's basically brand status. I believe that's what they called it. So how many brand awareness points do you want to give a guy? So it's not money, it's brand awareness points. In the bigger school that you have, guess what? The more brand awareness points you're going to have, and that's realistic. And so you're able to give more out because these recruits are going to care about that. Not all of them, but some of them, that's going to be their concern. How much NIL money can I make? You know what I'm saying? How much brand awareness can I get by coming to your program? And it's realistic, guys, because your winning teams that have winning programs, those are the schools that are going to be more marketable. Louisiana Tech is not near as marketable as the University of Texas. Okay. Does that make sense? The game has been in development for a couple of years now, and some of these NIL decisions have only very recently come down with the July release date. NIL is certainly important. He said you can't build Nevada. This is really important. This is probably, to me, the creme de la creme of this whole entire post that I've read so far. You can't build Nevada into a national title contender in just 3 seasons. There's some realism. If you take Nevada or Air Force to a national title, you are going to have to play a good number of seasons. I love that, and I'm going to tell you why. Because one thing that I liked, I did love playing NCAA 14, but I ain't gonna lie, there was not much replayability. After a certain time, you basically just doing the same thing, guys, because the game made it so easy to rebuild a terrible school. Okay, you could go play with, say, I'm using Nevada because that's who they're talking about. I could take a team like Nevada, who at the time was in Conference USA, in NCAA 14, it was in Conference USA. I could take them and go undefeated and end up ranked. And if I did the same thing the following season, I would end up in a major BCS bowl, if not the national championship game. Okay. In 3 seasons, I could easily take, in 3 seasons, I can easily take Nevada in NCAA 14 and make them into a ranked powerhouse. Now, as far as upgrading your school stats and stuff like that, your prestige rank at your school, that did take more time in NCAA 14. But as far as winning a national championship, you could do that with a subdivision team or a low-tier team in 3 seasons in NCAA 14. You could easily do that. I could put them in the SEC, and if I went undefeated, I would freaking win. You know what I'm saying? You could do it in 1 season. If I put them in the SEC and went undefeated, I would be ranked at the end of the year, and I would go to the national championship. If not the first year, for sure by the second. That was very real possibility. That's not going to be the case. And I'm willing to bet also, guys, another reason that this may be difficult to take a small tier team and build them up. Number 1, recruiting. You're not going to have the NIL resources. You're not going to have the stuff that these teams want. You know what I'm saying? Don't expect to be able to promise them stuff that a school like Nevada can't deliver on. Not to mention having lower tier players than those Power 5 schools. Guess what? You try playing a bunch of Power 5 schools, your wear and tear on your players is going to be tremendous because you're going against higher caliber players. Okay. They didn't mention this. This is just me speculating based off of the information that we have presented. All right. Knowing the wear and tear system, knowing that bigger players, big time players are going to play like big time players. They mentioned one thing saying that a game against, say, like a Nevada and the University of Texas is going to be completely different in intensity than a Texas playing against a Texas A&M or a Oklahoma. Big time games are going to be big time. You're going to feel the difference in playing like a Alabama and a Georgia as opposed to a Alabama and La Tech game. You know what I'm saying? That brought to life in this game. I've heard many people talking about stuff like that, okay? He said, can you go into more depth about how rebuilding a smaller program might be more difficult than previous editions of the game? He says, the level of school you play as will dictate how much you can actually promise things like going to the NFL, exposure and brand, which obviously is kind of code for NIL. That is super cool. That is super cool. He said it's a little bit more realistic. I used to take Ohio Bobcats and run it to a national title real quick, but that's not easy to do because of all the different promises that recruits care about. It's kind of cool because if you take one of these teams to a natty and you do it in 6 or 7 years, that's pretty neat. It makes the game playable for longer. I 100% agree. Because now, if I'm playing with a lower ranked school, a lower tier school, let me say, not ranked, I can't just go in and promise all these different things. It's not going to work that way. And I like that they changed it because remember in NCAA 14, so long as you kept your promises, you were able to promise more things in later seasons. Now they're tying it to your team, which is really good. How can I promise somebody to make it to the NFL if I'm Ohio and I don't have a track record of sending guys to the NFL, as opposed to a school like Alabama where you promising this stuff because you've done it? Okay, and that's why it's going to take a while to build up your school's prestige because you're going to have to do these things on a consistent basis over time. So that's really, that really, remember we did the rating video the other day? Where was it at? Not coaching breakdown, equipment breakdown, in-game footage. Where was the rating thing at? Dynasty mode. Oh, that was a live stream. No, that wasn't a live stream. That was an actual video. So remember the other day, whenever we did the video on the tier system right here, Dynasty tier system. We did this video here, and y'all saw my tier system. Let's open this up real quick for the sake of the. Oh god dang, we gotta add. Got to make that YouTube money. So I'm just going here to the end of my video here, pausing it. So remember we did this video and I had the tier system here and some people was upset about where this tier system was at, but it is what it is. So now you kind of understand how it is where like some of these safe pick schools, and I know, yeah, these teams on the bubbles can be safe picks too, but this tier system is extremely true for the game. Like, let's go up here to the top. A Florida Atlantic is not going to be able to promise the same things. Let's go one tier below. Florida Atlantic is not going to be able to promise some of the same things that even a Texas Tech would be able to promise. Okay? Because Texas Tech has sent multiple guys to the league. Florida Atlantic, not so much. A North Texas is not going to be able to promise as much stuff as a Arkansas. Definitely not. Or a Oklahoma State. You see what I'm saying? So now you see why this tier system has even come into play, because these schools are going to be the schools that are going to be able to be doing the best stuff. And a tier B, like I said, is just normal level. You get what I'm saying? He says a little bit more realistic. I used to take out, okay, I already read all that. And I like that it makes it playable for longer, guys, because that was a big deal with me rebuilding a school. And I plan on playing with a school like SMU. That was my choice for the dynasty pick, in which I have them rated as an A tier. Okay, that's hard difficulty. Remember, S was very hard. This was hard. This was normal. This was easy. This was very easy. And this was a walk in the park. I'm just playing for story mode. Does that make sense? So SMU, me starting to want to play a dynasty with SMU, I can't expect to go to the national championship that fast. I am going to be in the ACC. It is going to be a dogfight. I'm going to be playing the Florida States. Okay, not playing Clemson, probably won't see them to the ACC championship game if they so choose to make it. But SMU is not going to compete with the Alabama. Okay, I'm going to have a tough time playing that game. But I will probably do fairly well against like a team like Buffalo or UAB. You know what I'm saying? Because SMU is going to have that talent. Okay, those resources, not so much. I'm not going to be able to play at SMU and promise to send guys to the NFL because they just haven't sent a lot of guys to the NFL. But SMU got some money, baby. So I may have a little bit more money in NIL. Who knows? I love it. I freaking love it. I don't want to take SMU and make them a powerhouse in 3 seasons. That's no fun. That's no fun. You normally even recruit a draft class and you don't see that draft class blossom till their junior years anyway. Make it real, baby. He says, how will the coaching carousel compare to previous editions of the game? There are multiple coaching tracks that you can take. You can start out as a head coach or a coordinator. I believe you can start out as a position coach too. I have not seen a position coach talked about. If you can, that's cool. But all I've seen is that coordinator spot. He says there are different tracks you can take. No one can be an A+ in everything when you're starting out. You couldn't do it in NCAA 14 as well. It takes a long time to get to Nick Saban level. I love it. I love it, guys. I freaking love it. So it's not like you go to SMU and you have an undefeated season and then all these schools are offering you a head coaching job. Nah, Jack, you're going to have to prove your worth. And they're doing this to add longevity to the game. But that's what you want anyway, guys, because you building this team with recruiting. You're going to have promises, NIL to balance out, transfer portal. I love it. I want depth in a game because even Madden in the Super Bowl or in the Super Bowl games, in Madden in the franchise mode, it gets old quick. It's the same thing every year. And if you switch a team, it's the same thing. Now here with college, you got 134 teams to have multiple different experiences. If you're trying to build a school, it's going to take time. If you take a powerhouse, you're really going to have to manage your resources. It's going to be a lot harder because you're going to have a ton of recruits to please. Oh, man, I'm excited. I am excited. He said there's a recruiter, tactician, developer, or motivator track. That is dope. So the tracks for coaching. A recruiter, obviously, you're going to specialize in recruiting. A tactician is you're going to specialize in the X's and the O's. A motivator, you're going to specialize in player morale. All three of those tracks, you're sort of distributing your attribute points when creating your coach. Wow. We get attribute points when creating a coach. That's dope. Those actually impact how your players develop and play. Thank you. Because, guys, even in Madden in previous games where you be like, oh, I'm going to pick the Mongol, and they'll give you extra money for your franchise. You pick the players. There was never truly an impact on the players. I think if you pick the motivator, your players would have higher morale. But they said that by what track you choose, it's going to impact how your players not only develop, but how they play. So if I pick recruiting, hey, I might be a dang good recruiter. I may be able to get good players. But if I'm a tactician, which I'm probably going to be a tactician, I look at myself more as a motivator, but I think I'm going to go the tactician route. What route are y'all going to go? I think I'm going tactician, and I think what it's going to do is give your players a boost in awareness. Your players are going to be more tactical, especially if you're running an option style offense or something with a lot of RPOs. You're going to want to be a tactician because, oh my gosh, that's going to benefit like stupid crazy. Whoo, man, this is dope. He says, what do you hear about Road to Glory? Is it the same or different from last year's version of the game? He says there's a lot of different things you can do. You have to balance your time. You could actually become academically ineligible. That's not new. There was previous college football games where you could actually become ineligible. It was pretty interesting. And you had to go to study hall to get your grade up. He said if you aren't balancing your training and NIL opportunities, okay, let me back up. That was one complete sentence. He said you could actually become academically ineligible if you aren't balancing your training and NIL opportunities. So I don't think they're gonna. I was wondering that. I was like, are they gonna have us going to class and stuff like that? And from what it appears like, basically, I don't think they're gonna have us going to class. But what it is from what I'm reading here and what we've been told so far is that if you're not balancing your college life, if you're not training like you're supposed to, if you're solely focused on NIL deals and you're not training, you're not going to do too well. And vice versa. If you're training, your image is important as well and stuff like that. That's really cool that they're putting that in there. That is really cool. If you're not balancing your training and NIL opportunities. Okay. So NIL, like I said, is going to be a deal. Your image is going to be a deal. He said you really have to manage your player. They talked to coaches and players about the modern time constraints on guys, which I thought was pretty neat. I mentioned this to somebody earlier. I may have said it in the live stream whenever people were kind of upset or they was talking about Road to Glory. And I told them, guys, you got to think it's a different time that we're in. Or no, that was in the video where I was talking about Road to Glory, where I talked about how maybe they could do image and likeness with social media and stuff like that. And guys, this is proven to be true. I'm not saying they have a social media element in the game, but the college landscape is different, even from back when I was in college. And remember in the video, I even showed y'all some of the Colorado players' Instagram pages. Like, players are having to market themselves because of NIL, and they still have to do that while getting their training and playing in. They have to. These players are a brand now. In college football, you are your own brand now, and they have to manage that very similar to how NFL players do, because if they want that NIL deal, guess what? You better be a marketable player, but you better dang sure be a good player. So training needs to be balanced. They are adding so much realism to this game. I am stoked, and I am freaking loving it. So you're gonna have to train. You're gonna have to manage your NIL opportunities. That is dope, guys. And that's realistic to college football now, guys. That is realistic to how the landscape is now. He said, I don't think you can custom name your players in this because they're trying to make sure you can't do guys who didn't opt in. That's fine. I don't care as far as Road to Glory. I don't need to rename people. I'm playing with my player. Who cares? Okay. He says there are some limitations, I believe, since some players opted out. For instance, you can't just create Arch Manning. So what, is Arch Manning's name not available? What do you mean by that? If I'm creating a random player, I should be able to make the name be whatever I want. So that's interesting because I know you create a custom character, but maybe they have it to where you can't play. Like, you remember Raid to Glory, you could pick a player that's already on a roster and play with them. So maybe they're going to force you to create a player. You have to create a player. I don't know. That's interesting. That is interesting. I don't think you can custom name your players in this, but he's talking about Road to Glory, not Dynasty. Huh. I wonder if you'll be able to edit the players in Dynasty mode, though. Not that I care. I'm not going to change nobody's name, but I'd be like changing stats. But anyway, next question, he said, how will the transfer portal be used in the game? He said, it's really in there. He said, your current happiness at your school, path towards playing time, the feedback you're getting relative to what your coach told you would happen, all those things matter quite a bit. And I assume he's still talking about, maybe he's still talking about Road to Glory. There's transfer portal in Dynasty mode, but the wording that he uses here leads me to believe he's talking about Road to Glory because he said it's really in there. Your current happiness at your school, path towards playing time, the feedback you're getting relative to what, because he says here, the feedback you're getting relative to what your coach told you would happen. Like that, in Dynasty mode, you're the coach. So I'm assuming he's talking about Road to Glory here, which we know transfer portal is in the main game, and your guys will transfer out if you're not keeping your promises to them or even giving them playing time, whatever their desires are. Okay, if you're not winning, they can transfer out. If they came to your school for a winning program and you're not winning, they'll transfer. Okay, y'all get what I'm saying. But coach told you what happened. All those things matter quite a bit. That's really cool. Other thoughts on the game. He said the stadium mapping technology is so much better than it was in the last game. I believe they mapped every single stadium. The intros are really good. They built the hill to do motion capture for Clemson. Oh, that's cool. They built the horse to do Renegade for Florida State. They could have just put dots on the regular horse. That level of detail. They play the right song after certain things happen, which I heard Mo Mamba is in the game. And oh man, that's going to be dope. There are no X factors. Okay. You have mental and physical abilities. That's cool. I'm interested to see that. There is a real wear and tear mode. So you can't just run the same guy every time. A player will wear down, and it also increases the chance of injury. But that's cool. That is cool, man. He says a quick flick can get you closer to the ball on defense. What? That's kind of weird. Oh, he's talking about the analog stick. Eric talked about that. Rayweather talked about that. Where on defense, like normally you push a button and it'll switch you to the closest person. But on defense, they said you can do something with the right analog stick, with the right stick, and it'll get you closer. Like you can cycle through the defensive players faster. You can become the guy who is the closest to the ball. As far as user catch or user interception, that really helps. Yeah. The option game is definitely different. Before you had to really hit that button. To hand the ball off. Now it's a pull button. If you hit nothing, it's going to be a give. What? I hold on, back up. That's how the option always been ran. And see, I heard the opposite. I heard you had to push a button to hand the ball off. That's what I heard. Let me know what y'all have heard. I heard that if you push a button, you had to push a button to get the ball, to give the ball in an option. And I'm not talking about pitching. I'm talking about if I'm running a triple option with the fullback, I have to, what I heard is that you have to push a button to give it to the fullback. And if you don't, the quarterback keeps it. What he's talking about here, the option is just normally ran like that. The option game is definitely different. Before, you had to really hit that button to hand the ball off. Guys, I don't remember that in the option. Oh, see, it's been 11 years. Crap. I think you did have to push a button to give it an option. You did. He said now it's a pull button. If you hit nothing, it's going to be a give. So that's similar to RPO. And I think that's probably why they left those mechanics in the game, because of RPO, run pass option. You're right. I think you did have to push a button. God bless. That is true. You had to push a button to give the football. And if you didn't, you would have. Oh, man, that's okay. So that's cool. So if you don't push anything, they're going to automatically give it. So that is true to what people are saying. You have to. Well, no, they said you have to push it to pull it. Okay, that's still cool. All right. Is that it, bruh? That's it? That can't be it. Please let it be more. I mean, yeah. That's a weird way to end the article. Okay, so very, very in-depth, guys. I apologize for a long video. There's a lot to break down here. Understand this as well, that tomorrow EA Sports is going to release something. I don't know if it's going to be a trailer, but the guys can't talk about details of Dynasty and Road to Glory until tomorrow, because EA Sports has to talk about it first. So maybe they're going to do a deep dive. Maybe they're going to do a trailer for Dynasty mode and Road to Glory. So stay tuned for that, man. I just wanted to update y'all on all of those things. Oh, man. Eyes and ears are going to be to the ground. I have to work tomorrow at the same time. So hopefully whatever they drop is in the morning. More than likely it won't be. It'll be around the same time, about 10:30 my time, 11 o'clock Eastern. So I'll still be able to get some of that in. We'll go live. We'll go live and go through all of that together. And then I'll do a breakdown video of it later on, guys. Y'all have an amazing evening. Till next time, thanks for watching. Peace.
We just fired the person that does that, but now you have been promoted. You are now one of my elite employees.